like revenue that you have not yet collected, right? Like if you have like let's say a net 60, right? It's not going to mark net 60 as payment collected. Now, where you have to be careful is in the dashboard if you're reporting like the stages, right? The actual different stages of the pipeline. If you have a currency in that pipeline, then yeah, it's going to report that because you're showing the currency within the opportunities tab. And this is something that like a lot of scam affiliates used to do. If you go back and look at like the early people who are pushing high level like aggressively, they would say things like, you know, we've got $600,000 in our pipeline, and they wouldn't show you stripes or P&L. They would just show you an opportunities tab, and then they would put in the value of the leads. They'd put like, you know, 100,000, 50,000, 3,000. And so people are like, wow, that's a lot of money. And then you hop in high level and you're like, oh, I could have just faked that whole thing. So I'll share my screen super quick and show you what I mean. So if you're in like an actual you know, dashboard, right? If you're talking about this dashboard, not the actual agency or the SaaS dashboard. So
Yeah.
for example, if I have my conversion rate here, this is going to pull from the status, the opportunities tab, right? So I can go in there and I can inflate my numbers all day long. Now, not saying that your client is, but if you come over here and you see this pipeline where it's like new lead, on-site estimate scheduled, send estimate, what you want to do is when you're sending the on-site estimate scheduled, you can have the automation pull the estimate amount, but you can also have the automation pull the invoice amount and the invoice paid amount. So there's a difference between total paid versus total invoice amount, right? And that would be your down deposit. So in your pipeline stages, what I do is before I get to like this one stage, if they say quote accepted, I might say, okay, the quote estimate value is this much money because that's showing me this much money in the pipeline, and I do want to know that number. But that's why it's so important when you go to the opportunities, and I'll show you really. I know you know this, but just to be clear, if we have a new opportunity and I put, let's say opportunity value, let's say I put, I don't know, let's just put 1,000, right? So I have 1,000 on the opportunity value. Now, if I put the status as open, it's going to be open. It's not going to show up in that tab I just showed you in dashboard, which says one closed, right? So once the status goes to one, that's where I'm saying, okay, now I know that I've actually closed this or finished this job and I'm ready to actually collect this money or have actually collected this money. So this is why it's really important in your automations to make sure that your status corresponds to when you've actually collected the money. So a little note on that is if we look at your pipelines, new lead pipeline, what I do is I will put quote accepted as one because that's where they have said, hey, I've accepted, or instead of quote accepted, maybe you're doing estimate because that's the actual feature name. So let's put estimate. So basically, what I'm saying is, okay, the estimate has been accepted, right? So that might be one in this stage. Now, in the active job pipeline, it's going to go back to open. Once I have a waiting deposit, need to schedule whatever, I'm not going to mark it closed until down here, which is after awaiting final payment. So then it's going to go back to open. So then what I can track is I can say, okay, great, I'm closing this many in estimates and I'm actually cash collecting this many in estimates. And then that can help give you more data points to understand, okay, how do we make sure that it's a one-to-one match, right? How can I make sure that of every estimate I'm sending out, I'm closing 100% of those? And you're not going to see that. That's a very difficult metric to achieve. Most people that you're going to see who are looking at those metrics, you're usually closing. I think like a high performing company is closing like 96 to 98% of the estimates or the payment requests, the invoices that they send out, right? So not to give you a long-winded answer, but I want to make sure that you understand like tracking the estimates because if you're doing a down deposit, you're probably setting an estimate out, tracking the amount collected, and I can show you how to do that in the automation if you would like me to, and then tracking the actual total amount of the invoice. So making sure you're tracking those and then making sure you're very clear on when it's marked as one versus open.
Yeah, but in this case, for example, they mark as one when they get the down payment, but the problem is that they need to
No, you're fine. You're fine.
account.
Yeah, yeah. Watch this. Watch this. So what you would do
Uh-huh.
is one. So I have an automation here. Upfront payment secured. Let's say the invoice is partially paid versus fully paid, right? You would move this down. You could move this to the lead value if you wanted to. And I could do invoice and I could do invoice, not total price, but I could do amount paid. So now whatever they're paying, you can still leave it as one if you want to, because you're kind of signaling, okay, we've closed them, but you're doing the amount as paid and you're showing the only the amount is paid. Now, if they're taking that approach, One, in my opinion, needs to be at the end of the at the end of the pipeline stage. So what I would do then is I would come back here, and I have clients who do this all the time. We go to opportunities, pipeline, and instead of having deposit secured, awaiting deposit at the beginning of the active job pipeline, let's say, hey, we don't start. And the reason I have it this way is because this guy has some jobs that he does and does not accept a deposit. What you could do is you could take that stage and just move it to the end of this one. So it could be estimate accepted, and then after that, deposit paid. Great. Now that the deposit is paid, or maybe we've indicated that they don't need to pay, now let's move them into the active job pipeline. And so what that will allow you to do is that will say, okay, at the end of this stage, we're collecting a payment one. And then at the end of the next stage, which is they're doing the job is finished, let's collect the rest of the payment. Now it's one a second time in a second pipeline. So I would track it that way if that's what you're saying.
Oh, so yeah,
So
because in
yeah,
this
yeah. So you would do
case,
this. Check this out. You would just do this. Ready? Awaiting deposit, and then you would go deposit, paid, and then we can just leave it as deposit paid. And then once what you could do, or you can even just say, let's just say, move to, yeah. So let's say they require a deposit for everything. Let me just keep it simple. They require a deposit for everything. You would just say deposit paid. And this is why I don't have it this way in this automation because with the automation I built this out for, which is the landscaper, he says, okay, sometimes if it's under 500 bucks, I don't do a deposit. So that's where it's like once they're moved over, because there's no deposit, I'm not going to mark that as one. Now for you, if you're saying, okay, they are in fact charging a deposit, have this at the end. So once the estimate is accepted, we move to uh, awaiting deposit. So basically, what this would be they accept the estimate. In the estimate settings, you have where it immediately sends the invoice and it says, "Hey, just pay the down deposit of XYZ percentage," and I can show you how to do that. Once they pay that XYZ percentage, then it moves from awaiting deposit to deposit paid. Once it moves to deposit paid, there's another automation that moves them into need to schedule. So now the final stage in the new lead is they have paid a deposit, and the final stage in the active job is the job is done and they have paid the final payment. So now you have two ones, right? And then you can track your data. Okay, what percent of what number total in businesses are actually paying the estimate? How many of the people who are paying the estimate are going all the way through and also paying the final amount? And so you can track that. So then you can track, and this is where you really will make a lot of money for your client because if you're tracking, okay, people track this all the time, lead to client. But if you're saying lead to accepted estimate, how many people are from an accepted estimate are actually paying the down deposit? How many people that pay the down deposit pay the final amount? And of course, the name of the game is get that to 100%, right? But even if you're getting to people who accept it, 80% pay the down deposit, and then other people who pay the down deposit, 98% pay the full amount. That's a really good metric that you can share with people. Because then you can ask people, what are your numbers? And they're going to say, I don't know. And you're going to say, then how can you improve it? How can you measure it? How can you know where your money's going? And they can say, we don't. And you go, great, we can track it. And that's why the number one, like, if you don't look at like the number one core offer that you're really, really doing, and this is one that goes way over people's head every time, the number one core metric that you're doing is everything you're doing should be gathering data. Everything you should be doing is gathering data. Because if I can gather data, you can now know, okay, how can I change it? And like go to the fitness example, right? If I am inflating numbers, like right, if I'm saying marked one too early in the day, and then I stop tracking my calories for the rest of the day and I go eat a bunch of, sugary snacks before bed, and I wake up and I'm like, oh, I can't get rid of my love handles. Why? The data is skewed. So if you can change your pipeline to where the end stage is the one, and then it moves over into the next piece, like for example, we have the final payment and that's marked as one. What's the next pipeline? The next pipeline is let's get a review and referral, right? And then once we get the review referral, we mark that as one. And
mm,
so uh, having that at
yeah,
the end is going to give you the most amount of data. So you don't even have to. What's funny is you don't even have to really do anything. If you can just have a way, whether you're using GHL, Zapier, Make, Zoho, like it doesn't matter. If you just have a way for them to track their numbers and to show, even if it's on pen and paper, like tallying, get them an abacus. Like who cares? Slide over the dots as you have when people come in. The fact of the matter is that 99% of these people don't know their numbers. Anybody who is like one location, I'm not saying it's bad to have only one location, but anybody who is like stuck with one location most of the time, it's not because they've chosen to stay small. It's because they don't even know the numbers that they would need to expand.
Yeah, because now he has one pipeline,
Mhm,
and the process is he has closers, and they close the deal during the call,
mhm.
so they receive this down payment sometimes.
Yeah, commission.
Uh-huh. Um, but
So,
from the clients, from the customers,
mhm,
they sometimes receive this down payment. It's not all the time, because sometimes they pay the total amount.
mhm,
So what he needs is to know if somebody paid, for example, in December, uh, how much they need to pay in January, for example.
mhm.
Uh-huh.
So what you
So,
would do then is you would have, because to make sure I'm understanding properly, are you saying that they're only getting paid off of what they're collecting themselves?
no, 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 no. This is from the customers.
Right, right. But you're saying they need to know when you're
Yeah, they need to
saying,
know when they pay the down payment. For example, to count this amount in on December,
right, but not the full payment.
not the full payment, and
So what
and
you
what
would
what is the
do,
rest
yeah, yeah, this is what you would
that.
do. So you would have at the final stage, this is another reason why they should really have multiple pipelines. At the final stage, if you have deposit paid, then you know I'm only paying commissions out when it comes into, this stage right here, which is, deposit paid, right? Once it goes into deposit paid, they're not going to pay a second deposit. They're going to move further into the next pipeline number two, active jobs, and then they'll pay the final at the end, right? So now, if we know that they're coming into deposit paid, what you can then do with your automation is you could say, let me go into just sandbox mode. Hang on. So if you know that you only want them to pay on that one automation, you would do, let me just make a blank one. Hang on. This should be blank. Perfect. So what you would do is you would then do when the opportunity status is changed or pipeline status is changed in pipeline, whatever one, and you pick, new lead, whatever. Then what you're going to do, even if you're doing like invoice paid, you can have templates or you can have invoice status and let's do partially paid, right? Or even
they,
just
they
paid in
collect
general.
this or they update this amount um manually, the
Yeah, that doesn't
closers.
matter. That doesn't matter. If you send any invoice, yeah, I didn't choose a template. If they send any invoice, it'll follow this.
Okay.
Yeah. And then what you would do is you would do, let's say, um, we could do a math formula. Let me see if it will do it. Let me see if a math will work. And you could do like, custom field. This could be like the commission amount, whatever. Let's just say, charges, whatever. And then we could multiply times whatever commission amount and we could update that. You could do, where you're putting it into a sheet. And when you drop into a Google Sheet, it has the formulas already put in there. So you would just enable this and connect it. And then all you have to do is if this is the invoice under, um, you could even add this where you have invoice status is paid and you could have the certain conditions. So you could have different fields, but you basically just want to make sure that whatever their pipeline is just going to be the trigger. It could even be a partial payment if it's only on deposits, right? Or it could be, when they move over, what I would do is I would have two automations. So I'd have number one, I would get rid of this. Actually, let's say we leave this invoice paid. And then what I'm going to do is when they go to invoice paid, we're going to update the opportunity. And the value I'm going to put here is going to be the invoice amount paid. And then I can say that's going to be the commission, right? The invoice amount paid. And then we're going to move this into, I don't have it here, but let's say I'd move it into, let's say, do we have one? I was going to see if I had something kind of similar. Let's just say this pipeline, for example, is like deposit paid, right? Instead of close payment, just say pretend it's deposit paid. And then status would be one, because it'll be the final stage in that first automation or that first pipeline. And then you can do a note on the account, you can do a sheet, you can do whatever, and you can basically say so and so paid right here, invoice, we can do amount paid. And then this could be, times whatever 60% for, and then let's say sender's name because that's going to be whoever sent the invoice. So like if I close them, maybe I'm sending the invoice. So invoice paid times 60% for invoice's name as commission, right? And so I can do that. I could even do, a task, and I could make this a task.
Mm.
And then I can assign this task to whoever's in payment, right? Add this to their thing. Or you can do a sheet and just have it all in sheets with a date, right?
And that amount remains in the, for example, in the December numbers in the dashboard. If they pay the down payment, for example, 300,
Mhm.
if you see the dashboard in the dates and you change for December
If
month.
it's within the date range, if it's within the date range, or you can even put in here, right? Like I could do opportunity name. I could even say like contact full name, and then I could do because I have the lead value there, and I could even do the date. So I could say right now, where are we? Date, right? I can even say that so that way I know when the stage is. And then in the actual, because you're asking about the actual reporting. Whoops.
Mhm.
Where are you? There we go. When you go to do your report, all you're gonna do is say, okay, it's from this dashboard, select, and then you're gonna pick your dates. So you would say sender schedule, and then you're gonna have your scheduling frequency. So like if you're saying monthly, it's gonna show, okay, the first of the month. So if that payment is tracked, let's say December 19th, on January 1st of the next year, they're gonna get the last, month, right? So now January 1st, they see a payment from December 18th with all the numbers, all the reporting. And you even have, if you remember, you already have the I think it's under dashboards, and that's why I like using the dashboard setup. But you even have like the sales team efficiency. Let me see. I think I have it one in this one, so I don't have to make it. But if you scroll down, you can even see, yeah, sales efficiency, and you can even track like all the different users, and you can see their performances
Mhm.
right here too. Agent report, and you can see like the leaderboards and everything. So you can see, okay, this is the person who closed this opportunity. This is their cash and everything, and so this can go out in your reporting.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. But yeah, I would biggest piece of advice there is make sure your final end stages of the actual automation are the one stages. Don't have a one early in the automation.
Okay.
That's just my preference.
Yeah, I think I will need to split the pipelines to have the first one for the down payments and then move it to the other pipeline when they pay the total amount.
Mhm. And like it's a easy like I don't think your customer will be too upset with that because what you're trying to translate is I have a way to do what you want to do. Like we can track this a lot easier. And then in your dashboard, you can have different ones. You can have like you can have a one stage that shows the conversion rate for pipeline one, the conversion rate for pipeline two, the conversion rate for pipeline three, right? And you can have the stage distributions spread across that. So I'd be
Yeah,
surprised if they give you pushback at all.
because he wants to track all the customer journey
Mm-hmm.
because the traffic is coming from Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
and then he needs to know what's the journey between the entrance from Instagram until the final payment.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, really
And
important.
yeah, and he wants also to know if how much cash entered every month or
Mhm.
every week, and how much they need to collect in the future.
Mhm.
So that's basically what he wants.
Yeah. And that's another really important reason to have the one versus open because if you let's say you have them in, active job is finished, awaiting final payment, you can have a waiting final payment and you can have it as remaining amount for invoice, right? A remaining amount due. And that will tell you, okay, this is how much is open. This is how much is left on the books to collect. And I'm a really big fan of having everything go out to a Google Sheet and just having like your data warehouse because then you can comb through all the data in that warehouse, right? And so you can have it go to different tabs of the sheet but you want it to be, going somewhere that you can easily find it and track it in one just very simple way to manage that, right? So having it go to a Google Sheet, I've got a company where we even use job forms because GHL doesn't have the form that I need. So we have one where I help a company out that I've got equity with, and we just did a job form, and then job form has their own data warehousing. But data is like the number one most important thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So yeah, what he's trying to do, very, very good idea.
Okay, okay.
And there's way where you can track events, like you can track events through GHL. I'm trying to remember where it is. I literally just saw it yesterday. And I'll see if I can find it. But GHL is tracking, Google, your Google ads, your Facebook ads. You can have attribution or yeah, attribution reports.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there was a spot I can't remember where I saw it where you can literally track events, and you can set up the events to track. So if he's trying to track that, that's good. But even starting with, website visits to book calls to, getting estimates to approving estimates and getting a down payment and then the full payment, like even that's going to help. But basically what you want to do is you want to look at tracking all of those metrics in between. I know you know this, but for anybody else, you want to track the entire metrics of the journey, like every step of the way, and then look where your big drop-offs are. And then you want to address those. Now, your biggest drop-off is always going to be between like leads and actually saying, send me the invoice. That's always going to be your biggest drop-off. So I'm not saying abandon that. I'm just saying like don't see that number and like, cry yourself to sleep. But if it's not your biggest drop off, then you definitely have a problem. Like if your biggest drop off is like we're setting an estimate and we're not getting a close, that's a pretty big concern. Or that we're getting down deposit and no final payment, that's a pretty big concern.
Yeah, his process is very simple. It's the traffic coming from posts, and then they enter to schedule appointment with the
Mm,
sellers,
mm.
with the closers. Then they have the interview, and if they are qualified, they pay the down payment or they
Mhm.
pay the total amount, and that's it.
Yeah, so I would have a setting. I would have a setting pipeline and then a closing pipeline, and then like actually managing the job and final payment. Or
Mm-hmm,
whatever that looks
mm-hmm.
like. If the setting is the closing with the down payment, then I would have a setting pipeline, and then an active job. At the end of the active job would be the final payment, and then I'd have like a review referral pipeline as well.
Okay, okay,
And if
got it.
he's a coach, I wouldn't even worry about reviews because I think that's pretty. I don't think it's a smart thing. It's just not, in my
Mm-hmm,
opinion, useful. If he's more of a coach or an agency, reviews don't really matter, in my opinion. You want testimonials and client interviews, and then you want referrals as well.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. He uses only Instagram.
Yeah, he doesn't need reviews then. So you could just do like a client testimonial
Yeah.
pipeline.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Because the testimonial will get you more referrals than actual people asking for referrals.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you,
Yeah.
Sensei.
But that'll be a fun once you start getting into the data, like what's fun about tracking the data for anybody who's like, not 100% aware is that if you show somebody data, they can't argue with it. And so it will really paint a clear picture and it's not hard. Like once you set up the tracking, it's done. And the data is going to be so useful. Like it's going to tell you, your ROIs, what you're spending money on. Once you set up one time, it's just a matter of understanding what the data says. That's why there's entire jobs around data analysts, right? Um, so data,
Let me tell you, Alec.
yeah.
This is a client that I had the first approach with the flow chart
With what?
that I shared the video of the flow chart, and
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's the one.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and he's very happy working together.
Yeah, that's gonna be he's gonna love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because once you get, and that's the thing, right? Like you get to build the flow and then you go and do it. And then you're like, okay, I've got to figure out this setting piece. And then Alec is like, hey, here's an idea you could try, do what you want to do. And figure out what you and your client like the most. And then let's say you figure this out, whether it's my advice or your own experience, right? It doesn't have to be my advice at all. But once you figure it out, the second time that somebody comes to you with this exact problem, you're going to say, "Oh, let me tell you exactly what we did for this other client. Boom, 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 boom. This is the best way to do it, and it makes it really easy to report and understand the metrics. And because I've already done it, I can have this up and running for you within 15 days, 5 days, 10 days, 30 days, right? And so once you've done it once, you have so much more experience than if you've done it no times, right? Like we all know like the law of diminishing return. The more you get, the less effective it is. The biggest jump in production is 0 to 1. Right? That's the biggest
yeah,
jump. You have no cooks to one cook. That's a big jump, right? 1 to 2 is big, but it's not as big as 0 to 1. So
yeah.
there's
And I have used this for the new clients.
mhm,
I have showed the entire process,
mhm.
and they like, wow, that's very professional.
Yeah, and what's funny is like the first time you do it, you don't have to have done it at all. And
Mm-hmm.
you can you can show them that and they're like, "Oh, like I can see the vision." Like that's the whole point of a blueprint, right? Like I can say like, here's a blueprint of what we're going to build of a home. You don't have to see the home to see the blueprint and say, "Okay, cool. Now it's just a matter of, can I, based on what we've spoken about or maybe previous projects, can I trust you to now build it?"
Mm-hmm.
Somebody asked, "Do you see GHL's collab communities taking on school?" I think they will take school on. The problem that I think GHL is going through right now in regards to taking on school to surpassing different platforms, in my opinion, is I think that they're branching out, and in branching out, they have more distance and more ground to cover. So they will start and this is what they've talked about in 2025, at their last event. They've talked about how they're going to slow down on product releases to really perfect existing products, which I think is smart because I think in 2024 they were so fast to put things out that they didn't realize they needed to go back and like make sure it was perfect. Like they're like, "Oh, let's put out a version of school." It's like, "Yeah, but it's a bad version of school. Like it's not great. So school is still going to maintain its place. You're going to take maybe like a very small level. If you want to blow somebody out of the water, it's like, 0 to 1 covers this and 10x is better than 2x covers this. If you're going to take somebody from school, absolutely dominate them. Now, if they came out, what's interesting with GHL is if they just came out and replicated school like a 1-for-1 match, it would be 10 times better because of all the automations, websites, funnels that GHL has that school does not have. The problem is they put out a watered down version of school and they have a lot of issues around it. Um, but I do think they're going to fix it. So if they can do what they said they were going to do and have all their products perfected by the end of the year, yeah, I think they'll take over school. I think the only thing that school has going for them is the fact that, like right now, the only thing that they have going for them moving forward is the fact that they have Hormozy promoting it. Unless they start developing their product at the same speed in which GHL is developing their product, I think they're going to fall behind the same exact way that ClickFunnels fell behind. That's just my 2 cents. I could be wrong. Do we have any other questions? Do we have anybody who wants to even share the accountability tracker that we're going into? We're almost at the end of the month. Does anybody want to jump into that?
Hi, Alec.
Yeah, I don't know what's up.
Yeah, I just got a question about attracting like more driven and ambitious clients.
Hmm.
Because I had a call earlier with a guy, It was just like a general chat, really. He was kind of after a new website because his one is quite old.
Hmm.
But then I just basically said to him, "Can I ask what do you do with the current quotes that you send out?" And he said, "Oh, like we don't really do anything with them. We just leave them." And I was like, "Okay, so how many did you send in January?"
Hmm.
He was like something like, I don't know, 10 or something. He's in the HVAC
Sure.
industry. And then I said, well, what if I could build a system and get you those, not all of them, but obviously some of them.
More.
Maybe if you
Yeah,
give me
right.
the, yeah, give me more, give you more, basically more high, people get them back on side basically, and not let them fall through the cracks. And he was like, oh yeah, I'd be interested in that. And then I explained everything to him. He said he already uses like a CRM, so he's not really interested in that.
Hmm.
But he was interested in more Google reviews as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just didn't really seem interested and driven. And he's like, you know what? Like I'm 64, I'm winding down. I see myself retiring in a few years.
Yeah.
My son is going to be taking over the business. And I just, you know what? Instantly, I just thought, this is really not worth pursuing further because he doesn't seem interested. So I just want to kind of attract more clients who are up for like new things like this. Like, okay, look, like, you can make use of my old leads, my old quotes.
Hmm.
Let's go for it. Let's do this. So yeah, I'm not really getting that at the moment. I've had quite a few demo calls this month, but
Sure.
yeah, all of them honestly, they're just not the. I've probably had one who was really up for it, and I've got another call set up with him. But
Hmm.
apart from that, yeah, they're just not ambitious or anything like that. It could be that I'm cold calling them, and they don't know me. But
Right.
yeah, it could be that. But the thing is, I think I explained before, because I'm already doing a 9 to 5, I can't really go all in on social media, unfortunately.
Right.
So I'm doing it the hard way until I get my first, like solid case study that I can
Hmm.
leverage. So yeah, that's the kind of the situation. Like, how would you what would you do in my situation? How to kind of get those, more ambitious clients?
Sure. So, and this is going to be based off of my very limited understanding of the situation you're in right now.
Mm,
What I would say is from what I have seen other people experience that are saying something similar, and correct me if I go, off of what is actually the case. But number one, I would look at what are you doing in terms of your opener to secure these calls? Because if they are coming in for a website, reviews, anything, the piece that you're selling is not the vehicle necessarily.
mm,
The vehicle is like the thing that they will buy into, but you're not selling the vehicle, right? Like I don't sell you a plane ticket. I sell you the concept of taking a vacation somewhere tropical and beautiful, and then you go, well, how do I get there? And you don't pay the destination, you pay the plane ticket and the accommodations to get to the destination, right?
mm,
Now, let's say
mm.
you want to go, do you have a favorite vacation place you go to? Maybe somewhere beautiful, or maybe you prefer the cold.
Um, well, I go to Zurich a lot because my sister is there
Okay.
in
So,
Switzerland.
okay. So let's say you go to Zurich, right? Where do you usually stay with your sister?
Yeah, I do. I stay with her.
So when you stay with your sister, do you pay to stay with your sister?
I don't actually.
Okay, I didn't know. Do
Yeah,
you
because she's
pay?
she's got her own place. But I pay like when we go out and things like that, like
Sure, sure.
coffee
But
or dinner.
do you pay for? And let me ask you, why do you visit your sister? Do you visit her just to check off the box? Do you enjoy spending time with her?
I enjoy spending time with her really, and also it
Sure.
gives me time to kind of, get away from UK and just,
Yeah.
new environment.
So when you do that, are you paying to make memories with your sister?
Um, I guess I am in a way because I'm kind of
Right.
removing myself from my work and from everything like that.
But you're not paying for the memory itself. You're just paying to go and spend time with her, and from
Yeah.
that you have I mean, I would assume you don't pay to visit her and the whole time you're screaming at each other.
Oh no, no, absolutely not.
Right. So what I'd have to sell you is the reason why you like going. It's the fun of being with your sister. It's unplugging and taking a breather.
Mm.
Maybe it's the slower lifestyle pace of Zurich. I've never been, so I have no idea. I would assume it's probably a little bit calmer than the UK or where you are in the
Yeah,
UK. And so
definitely.
I
Yeah.
can, those are the things that I have to sell you. Now, for you
Mm.
to go, I'm in, what does it take? Then the vehicle becomes the question of what you actually pay for.
Mm.
But the vehicle is not what I'm selling you. Now, if
Mm.
you even look at GHL, this is where the people fall into the trap of they try GHL for a day or they try anything for a day, it doesn't work, and then what do? They fall into the same thing that Alec unfortunately does, which is why I tell people I hate the very space that I'm in, which is, oh, here's how to make money online, right? And the reason a lot of people do that when they're really, not the most qualified is because the way that they got sold is the way that they turn around and sell. So what they
Mm.
do is they end up saying, okay, the destination with GHL is what? What is the destination with GHL? Why are any of you guys here? Are you guys here because
Transformation
it's always the transformation, right?
and
So
improvement.
it's yeah, transformation and improvement, right? Usually you want to transform into a more positive state. You don't usually don't want to people usually don't want to say, "Hey, I want to go from out of shape or in shape to being out of shape." They don't say, I want to go from being
Mm.
rich to poor unless there's some kind of like, I don't know, spiritual journey through the mountains of India, right?
Mm.
So what you're saying is you're saying UK and you're going to how do you spell Zurich? Is it like this?
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is what I have to sell you, but this is what you're buying, the plane ticket.
Mm. Mm.
And we're going to draw a little plane. That's what you're buying. But you're not buying the plane ticket to ride around on the plane.
Mm.
You're buying it for the destination. But for
Yeah.
me to get you there, I have to sell you this. So, and somebody said it in the comments, when he's saying, you know, I don't really, when he's saying, let's back up a little bit. He's saying, okay, what are the things he wants? He wants website reviews. Why does he want these two things?
Website. He just wants to basically improve his online presence because he's been
Why?
in business so people can find him and ultimately get more leads, more jobs, more revenue.
And more revenue is where it always ends, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So he wants more revenue. This is his destination. The
yeah.
problem is that he thinks this is his plane.
Mm.
That'd be like if I said, "Hey, UK to Paris. How would you go from where you are in the UK to Paris?"
Whether it's like plane or train.
Perfect. Can I take a
Yeah.
train from Florida to Paris?
No, yeah,
No. So, but now if I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, well, that's how you got there." When I, what's funny is when I make it this kind of analogy, you can see very clearly how like idiotic I
yeah,
sound, right? Like you're
yeah.
like, okay,
But
typical American, they don't know geography. Like, no, you cannot take a train there, right? But that's the problem is that these guys, now we go back in the business space, they are the person who doesn't have this mindset, right? What do they want reviews for? I have a pretty good feeling you're probably gonna say reviews for presence and presence for more money, right?
Mm, mm.
So the question is, okay, well, where can we make them? Where can we get this the fastest? So,
That's why is it the database reactivation? Because that's what I kind
well,
of
the,
offered
the
him.
the fastest place you're gonna take this is basically the leads that are already coming in and looking at the conversion. That's the fastest place that you can take it
Mhm.
is by focusing on the percent. And the fastest way to focus on the percent is not with the happy people because you're already making them happy. It's with
Mm,
the sad people, the people who are not buying in. This is where you make your money.
mm,
Because if I pump the leads, if I give you 10 leads at a 5% conversion, 100 leads at 5% conversion, 200 leads at 5% conversion, are you going to make more money? Yes.
mm.
The problem is
Yeah.
that when we send more leads, one of two things happens every time that people usually don't consider. So if I send you more leads, what's going to happen? Let's look at a leaky bucket. If I pour a ton of water into this bucket, and let's say I have one little leak,
Mm.
And what do people assume? They assume, oh, well, there's just one little leak. Let's pour more and more and more. What they fail to assume is that there's one leak and the water was actually just going to the first leak there was. So when you
Mm.
actually pour more water into this bucket, you're going to see that there's actually a lot more leaks than you realized, right? And because there's a lot more leaks than you realize, what you had as a 5% conversion rate is actually going to go down to like a 2% conversion rate. And a really easy example where you can like fact check me on this is if you have a YouTube video and that goes on it becomes pushed out to a wider audience. And I see this all the time. If you're on YouTube, you'll see this all the time. I have a 5% conversion rate, or let's say I had one video that had like a 12% CTR, and I had another video that had a 2.1% CTR, which is way worse, right? Your click
Mm.
through rate, and it had this little I button, and I was like, oh, what's that say? And I click it, and usually it's like, oh, this video is performing better. It says you have a lower conversion rate because it's being pushed out to a wider audience. This does not affect your performance metrics at all. So it's literally telling me, hey, this is normal. Why?
Mm.
Leaky bucket. It's just pushing more water into a bucket that didn't have the thing. Now it can tell me, hey, I need to maybe fix my title or whatever because it's being pushed out more, but it's a leaky bucket. So the first thing is that people always assume their conversion rate is not going to change. The second piece where people really mess up in terms of more leads, more traffic, whatever, is that how much money does it cost to generate, let's say, 10 leads? Just throw me a random number.
Is this for the company if they're doing like, I don't know, ads or something?
Yeah, let's say they're doing ads
It's
or
because it
SEO.
depends. Yeah, because it depends like what they're doing. So I don't know, ads, let's just
Let's say
say,
with paid traffic. Let's just say
yeah.
paid traffic. How much would it cost for you to generate 10 leads via paid traffic?
Let's say they, I don't know, $20 per lead or something.
Cool. So we're at 200 bucks, right?
Mm.
If you wanted to double this number, what would you have to do with this number?
Pump more money into
Okay.
the ads. Yeah.
How much more money do you want to pump into it to get to 20? Maybe like double it?
Yeah, double it. Yeah.
Sure.
In this case, because it's 10 to 20. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's say some of the leads maybe cost like this much.
Mm.
Well, we have to double it, right?
Mm.
But check this out. What does it cost to go from this to this in conversion rate?
Just more volume, I guess.
Not even more volume. It just takes looking at the data and
Yeah.
tweaking
Yeah.
the funnel. So this
Yeah.
to this, it's not going to cost anything additional.
Yeah. Okay. I thought you meant like just more, you know,
Oh yeah,
basically
yeah.
contact more people like that.
Well, usually when you contact more,
Yeah.
remember the leaky bucket, usually your conversion rate goes
Oh yeah,
down.
like yeah, yeah.
So to go to from 5 to 6, it costs $0. And you
Mm.
already have the number here. You already have water in the bucket. So just plug the leaks.
Mm.
How do I find the leaks? That's what I was telling Omar. Just look at your numbers, right?
Yeah, yeah. The stats.
So what's funny is people go, I want 10 to 20 leads, and they're picking the most expensive way to do it, which is through the lead generation. I'm not saying lead generation is bad. What I'm saying is plug the bucket. Then for free, let's crank that number up. Then when you're ready, let's come back and actually double the number. So this
Mm.
should be first. This should be second. Because when I
Yeah.
go to do this now, my conversion rate is doing this. It's not doing this. We don't want that. So if I can ensure that we're doing this first, then I can go to step two, which is now let's pump numbers into it.
Yeah, yeah. That's exactly what I sold him on. I said, because he
Yeah.
doesn't have a budget. So I said, let's go with this route first and make use of what you have, and then we can go on to the next one, like ads in the future or SEO, whatever you want to do.
Right.
But
And
yeah,
the second piece, which is more of like the sales conversation, because you want to remember that he might be your client, but the business owner's client is twofold. It is the team and it is the actual client. You have your internal client and your external client because you have to get the team to buy into what you're doing, right? Nobody wants
yeah,
to go work for free. So you have to get them to buy into what we're doing for the price. And it's a sales piece, right? Negotiation. If you know any headhunters, talent acquisition, that's what they do. When he's saying, I want to hand this over to my son, the son is going to be, I would assume, younger, just
yeah,
biologically speaking,
yeah, yeah,
and he's going to be taking this business. So what we can then do is we can then say, okay, well, if you're handing this off to your son, I can have a conversation with your son, I can have a conversation with you and your son, but at the end of the day, you're operating in a way that is outdated and you're letting leads and quotes that you're sending out for people who are interested slip through. when
Mm,
when you know that if you just had a conversation with them after you sent that lead out or that quote out, you could probably bring at least just one or two of them back.
mm,
So
yeah.
why would you
Mm,
say, "Hey, I actively want to choose to not do that." And
mm,
so the son might be more interested, number one, but number two, he might be more receptive to the tech. He might be more open to the logical thinking of it. He might be more receptive to trying it out. He might be more receptive to any of that. And then the sale that you're doing to the dad is basically saying like, hey, we can have this set up. So when your son steps into it, he's going to take this to where, you've always known it could go. You always wanted it to go, whatever. If he's
mm,
like, hey, he's like, hey, I'm on my way out, be like, that's perfect because that means that as you're training him, we can set this up. So that way you have two bosses. And then that way when you leave, he now has everything down to where he knows what to do and the system is running for him.
yeah, yeah.
So everything has to be about them. If you like, if he's saying whatever he's saying, it has to be about them, right? If I wanted to sell you a first class ticket to Zurich, I'm not going to
Mm,
say Zurich is beautiful and it's got places. I'm going to say, hey, your sister's there. You've been working your tail off. You're gonna go there to relax and have fun. Traveling is a nightmare. I don't know anybody who likes traveling by plane, personally. What
mm.
if you could start that vacation 5 hour? I don't know how far the plane ride is. Maybe it's what, was like 3 or 4 hours.
It's an hour and a half, I
Oh, even
think.
shorter. Okay, great.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, because you're going.
yeah.
Yeah. So hour and a half. What if you could start your vacation an hour and a half earlier? First class ticket for this much money. Here's all the things you're gonna be like ready to go. That would be how I approach you with the sales piece because I know you're going to see your sister for memories and relaxation. I can't give you memories on the plane, but I can give you relaxation on the plane, which would be the first class. Now, are you
Mm,
going to say yes? Good salespeople are rejected, more than half the time. But you're more likely to say yes if I make it about you and about what you've given me versus, I'm not saying you ignored it, but versus like missing those pointers, right?
mm,
And so
yeah.
what's fun is when you take that approach, you divorce yourself from the idea of being stuck with GHL because you're not stuck with high level. You're not. You should be stuck on where are they trying to go and then how do I build what needs to take them there. And that's where
Mm,
I've got a call after this one where I'm going to be building out it's booking koala GHL Zapier, and it's basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take his software, his CRM, booking koala, and I'm going to literally put it on steroids because I'm going to
mm.
add GHL and Zapier to automate the whole thing to be hands off.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So
That, yeah.
he's gonna like it because it's gonna be exactly what he wants. It's gonna do everything he wants. He knows GHL, he knows the software we're already using. He just needs someone to connect it all with him. So then, when you're saying, okay, well, this guy's telling me he already has a CRM, it doesn't matter anymore
Mm,
because we're not selling CRMs. And that's where the book, Obviously Awesome by April Dunford, comes into play, where she says, identify what market you're in. Like her whole book is just about understanding what market you're in. If I say
yeah,
CRM, I'm going to start comparing CRMs. If I
yeah.
say cell phone, I'm going to start comparing cell phones. I wouldn't say cell phone and then pull out a tablet. Even though you
Mm,
can argue that it's just a bigger cell phone, I, if I say tablet, that's in its a world of its own, right?
mm.
If I
Yeah, yeah.
say, you know, cell phone that opens into a tablet, okay, now we're still in the world of cell phones. Maybe we're bridging the two, right? And you can argue, how they rank, relatively. But the fact of the matter is, whatever you say you're in is going to be what people position their mind in. So for you on your calls, just to wrap up, my feedback would be, and again, this is all based on what I've understood you to have told me. Not
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
obviously I wasn't like, fly on the
yeah.
wall. But what I would say is when you hop on calls with these people, I would have a very clear understanding of who you are business wise and what you do. So if you're saying, for example, I'm a marketer does not imply I'm going to build sales conversion systems. If I say I work on conversion rate optimization, that does not imply lead generation. If I
Mm,
say we build custom sales systems, that implies leads and marketing or leads and conversion, right?
mm,
And I
mm,
say that not to say that's the best one you need to go with, but I say that to say if you only want to do leads, say you're a marketer. If you only want to do conversions, say you're a conversion rate. Maybe you build custom conversion mechanisms. If you are doing both, you do sales systems, right? Because you're doing the more people to buy and getting them to buy. If you're
Mm.
doing hiring, we build custom hiring automate. If you can outline who you are in that regard, it will give them a much clearer jumping point, right? Now, anytime you
Yeah,
pick something
yeah.
that is rare, lesser known, or new, there's going to be a little bit of explanation that needs to happen. And so the way you explain it, this is from Jeremy Miner's NEPQ, you just say, hey, you know how people have this problem? Here's how we solve it. That's it.
Mm, yeah.
So you know
I
how
guess
people generate a lot of leads, but they don't have really anything put in place to make sure that people get the quote and you can talk about the quote and work with them until they close it. We build systems that do that and they connect your traffic sources to your CRMs and make sure your team are very happy with all of it. Boom.
mm, yeah, yeah. I think what I usually do is I just get them to speak as much as they can and tell me their pain points, and
Mhm.
then I try to kind of provide a solution to that.
So
So
here's the beauty of
that's why I'm a bit like if I say like just conversion and they come out with another problem,
perfect. So
you know what I mean?
here's what I want you to do to be even more like to be really dramatic with what you just said, right? If I let's say I go and you say, "Hey, what are you dealing with?" And I go, "Oh my goodness. My car will not start. Every time I get in my car, I start it up, it just it's like it just won't go." And like
Hmm.
I'm just going crazy, so I don't know what I'm gonna do, right? And then the person goes, "I'm a doctor. What are you telling me that for?"
Mm,
The doctor
yeah,
doesn't do the mechanic. If I go to the mechanic,
yeah,
and I purposely left out who I was talking to because it's like, oh, he's telling me these problems. And it's like, nah, I'm the doctor. What are you talking,
yeah.
right? The only person who wants to hear all of your problems are going to be, people in your support system and maybe a therapist or a counselor, right?
Mm,
So for you, and it's very difficult. This is where people like really fall down the slippery slope of called it's called feature scope or product scope. And so what it refers to is, and how many of you guys have been through this, which is I'm offering A, I'm not getting enough people, let me offer B. I'm not getting enough people, let me offer C. Let me offer, and you start offering the whole alphabet. And then you look over and you're like, oh, well, this guy's just offering one letter and he's making a lot more money. I'm offering the whole alphabet, I'm getting nobody. And what happens is you
mm,
start becoming like this cheesecake factory menu. So I would say for you, Adelina, I would say get super specific on what you're offering and then the
mm,
order in which you offer it. And then if they come to you about marketing, you can say, "Hey, we're going to do marketing. I'm going to help you with that. First, let's plug the bucket." Or if you
mm,
say, "I'm only doing leads." "Hey, we're going to make sure that we're generating you high quality." And that's why I stay away from leads because it doesn't necessarily correlate positive. Again, you get fired from that. I covered that in the video, right? I
mm,
would pick if I were you guys, I'm biased. I would pick either I do the conversion itself, conversion rate or conversion mechanism, custom conversion mechanisms, or I'm doing custom sales systems.
mm. Is that the data? So the database reactivation, what exactly when you
So
say
the
like
database
optimization?
reactivation, you're probably looking at more sales system than anything because
Okay.
you're driving people back into the system. Where it gets tricky with the DBR is that the sales system once you put it in place is going to have built-in database reactivations.
Mm,
It's not going to be called that. It's just going to be called like promotions, right?
mm,
That client retention aspect. So you can argue that would go into either one. You can argue, hey, we're going to kickstart the conversion mechanism by pulling people back in and showing you how the system retains them, or you can have that go into the sales piece. So that can really go into either one.
mm. And so it will go into the sales system and it will go into the optimization, would you
Right.
say?
It's kind of like a kickstart. It's kind of like because once you have the optimization piece up and running, he's going to have
Mm,
traffic or she's going to have traffic coming in already, and you're just going to be
yeah.
converting them. So what you can say is, hey, let's go ahead and throw a little fuel on the fire to bring them in. But it is technically more. See, that's where it's tricky because it's not necessarily generating new leads. It's just bringing them back in, which the system would do. So that's where you can.
Yeah.
That's where I say it's a really easy micro offer where you can offer it to either party.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm going to just go all in on this, to be honest with you. Because I watched the whole video, the 3 hour video. It was really, really good. I think
Thank you.
one thing that I struggle with is when I speak to someone and they say, I think they think like they're using a CRM and they probably think, oh my God, like this is going to be such a big task for me just to just transfer onto this system.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to kind of say like, well, you know what? How do you send your invoices? Okay, so we send it manually by email. Like, is there a way? Because I'm not very, I mean,
So
I'm
don't get
not
into
bad
the
tech,
features.
but
Yeah, yeah. Don't get into the
yeah.
features of like for example, the client I've got after this call. How do you
Mm,
like setting your estimates? I love booking koala. I'm not gonna say pivot over to GHL. I'm gonna say, cool.
yeah.
How can I get that information to talk over to GHL? And what's interesting is
Right.
as you do this, you're gonna have conversations where you're like, you don't need GHL at all. You need all this random
Mm,
connection and assortment of things tied together using Make, Zapier, NAM,
yeah.
IFTTT. And so that's the fun of this because if GHL dies tomorrow, you're like, I'm fine. I'm just gonna look at like, I mean, if I don't have a hammer, I'm gonna use the nail gun.
Mm,
The house still needs to be built. That's not, I mean, that's not an option,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like for
Yeah.
example, the train is down for whatever reason. They're doing repair on the bridge. You're gonna take the plane to see your sister. We've shut off all flights because there's too much smog or maybe the weather's too bad. Great, I'll take the train,
Mm,
right?
mm,
You're going to your destination. It's not a matter of, oh, I'm only going if I can fly. No, you're like, I
yeah.
want to go visit, right?
Mm,
So these people, they want to get more revenue. The question then becomes, what is the path? And that's where you have a lot of fun. If you have someone come to you and they're like, "Oh, I'm already using JHL," people go, "Oh, I can't charge them. I can do my setup fee, and then there you go. I can set it up, stay with you for a month or two, make sure you're happy, and then you're not going to pay me monthly, but I don't also have to manage it monthly. Perfect. I'll do that all day long." Some
mm,
lady on Facebook, she was like, the client knows I'm using GHL and they have GHL and they don't want to pay me monthly for it. It's like, and she was like, they asked me to do a setup. Should I do it? And I commented, I'm like, listen, they're going to pay someone to do it. If they're already in talks with you about setting it up,
mm, then
like
yeah.
do it. Like you
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
doing it is not going to cut them off, right?
Mm, mm,
Like you
yeah.
not having a mode of transportation is not going to stop you. If you've got to get groceries to put food on the table for you and your kids, you're not going to be like, oh, car's broken down. Guess we're not eating. No, you're going to be like, I'll walk,
Mm,
I'll Instacart, I'll bike. Like I've got like, it's not a matter of, and this is where I think the younger people, and especially the people who don't have enough of a reason to do this, that's where they fall apart because they're like, oh, well, I envisioned going to Paris in a plane because my dreams are not envisioned. I'm just not going to go.
yeah.
But if
Yeah.
you have someone who's like, listen, I have to get there. I don't care if I have to crawl, walk, run, swim, fly, grow wings, and become a bird. Like, I don't care. I'm going to do it.
Mm,
And that's why I
yeah.
tell people in the beginning of the training, like, find that why, because then you won't care about how you get there.
Yeah. So if I have someone like that, in the future who says, because in
Mhm.
their mind, that's what they're thinking, this is going to take a lot of time to transfer and blah, blah, blah. The way for me to deal with that objection is just to say, ask them more questions about the CRM that they're using,
No,
and
no.
then
What's
just
what's
say,
the anxiety? So I think like
the
so
time moving across.
so address that. Remember, you got
Yeah.
four forces with buying: pull,
Yeah.
push, or push,
Oh, yeah.
pull, anxiety, habits. With
Yeah.
anxiety and habits, you have to include those into the piece, and that's going to be your biggest objection are anxiety and habits.
Yeah.
That's your
Yeah.
biggest piece.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so look at smoking. What was a big thing when they because in the UK I know like UK, Europe, US. I think the Europe had a bigger smoking issue than the US did. But what was a big thing they told people who were former smokers? Oh, like lollipops because you want that oral fixation, right? They wanted to like just put something up to their mouth. They're like, "Oh, get lollipops."
Yeah.
Like that was, do you
Yeah.
remember that? That was like a huge thing. They even had
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
nicotine lollipops for a while. I don't know if you remember that. It didn't last very long.
And the chewing gums and
Yeah, the
like,
chewing. Yeah, because they
yeah.
wanted oral
Yeah.
fixation. So that
Yeah.
was what? Habits. What was the anxiety? Oh, I feel like I'm going to withdraw. Oh, we'll put nicotine in there to help you have a smoother withdrawal process.
Yeah. That's true.
So that's the when you look at when they're telling you their anxieties and the habits, don't move past them. Have a conversation with them. And so like the whole purpose of this is what I tell Grant with his sales process is I tell him like memorize this flow, which is we covered it on the previous call, which is like what is the push, what is the pull, what are you currently doing, here's what we do, what are the anxieties you have about or what are the habits you have that you want to include in this, like what habits you would not want to get rid of, what are the anxieties you having. Once we handle that, we go into pricing. If you can memorize that, what you can then do is then you can remove that script and then you don't feel like you have to go in the order of that script. And that's the biggest
Yeah.
issue. If you talk to like the top salespeople who are selling all day long, that's the top thing they say is like, if you have a script, like scripts don't work, it's a framework. And so you have to move through the framework in a specific way. So if they're telling you their anxieties and you have a script, you're going to be like, okay, next piece, let's talk money. And they're like,
Mm,
I just told you of a problem I have. They're going to be turned off right away. But if you're like,
mm,
okay, I have to check the box of anxieties before I move on, what are you anxious about? I'm anxious. It's going to take a long time. Time wise, let me tell you the commitment. We're going to have an hour call. where I'm going to walk through your whole process to make sure I understand it fully, exactly how you want it done, exactly what you are willing to and are not willing to part ways with. Next, I'm going to build out a plan. I'm going to present it to you. I'm going to send it to you via video so you can watch it. And if you send it over Loom Descript, put me in, 1.5, 2x speed. That's going to save
Mm.
you a meeting. You can watch it whenever you want. You can watch it on the what do you call in the UK? The Loo. Watch it on the Loo,
Lou,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Lou, yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah,
true.
watch it on the loo, right? Watch it on the toilet, watch it on the dunny for the Australians, right? Watch it on the toilet for all I care. That's gonna save you a whole bunch of time. And then once you like it, send me a text or email back. I'll start building it out. So
Mm.
time wise, commitment wise, you're looking at an hour call where we map it out. You're looking at watching a video and telling me what you like and dislike, and then doing that until it's perfect, which it will be because we're gonna have an hour call. And then once I build it out and we deploy it, it's gonna be less time because you're still gonna do the things you love. We're not gonna take away anything you want to keep and you're just going to do less of what you were already doing.
Mm. Mm.
So you
Yeah,
can say time wise, all in. Let's say it's a complete waste of your time. You're looking at 2 hours, complete waste of your time.
yeah, yeah. And I also need to clarify, if they're sending an invoice, sorry, if they're sending, usually this is what they do actually, like a lot
Hmm.
of people in the UK, the ones that I've been in business for a long time.
Hmm.
What they usually do is they manually, via email, send a quote out to people. Is there a way that I can connect through Make or Zapier?
So
Like
when they're sending,
as soon as they hit the send button, connect it to their email, connect Go High Level, and see who's not replied to their quotes. Because if it was on Go High Level, you could just use the pipeline and drag them across.
so
You would know.
they're sending an invoice or an estimate.
The estimate.
So what
Sorry,
I
the
would say for
estimate.
the estimate
This
is
is for
if,
the database reactivation.
yeah, I would say for the estimate, I would say, wait, you're saying the client is sending an estimate to their clients, and if
Yeah,
there's
yeah, manually via email.
so if it all costs the same amount, then you'd be sending out like a landing page with a product. If they're custom quotes, then you can invite them, send an email out with a link and invite them to fill out a custom quote form
Mm, mm,
or and then that custom quote form can say, hey, let's manually send them an estimate via GHL, or it can say, hey, fill it out and we're going to send you an estimate via GHL automatically because we have calculations.
mm, mm.
So if you have to
Okay.
change the process because it's like a new process, number one, if they send the estimate via GHL, even if they send it like let's again forget GHL, if they send it via QuickBooks, Square, Stripe, that's going to be
Yeah.
way easier than sending it in an email where you're like losing the number, what was the number, and do we change it, and what was the pro
Yeah.
you can send it there, they can
That's
accept it, reject it, and you can track that. So
yeah.
if you ever have to have them change their process, what you're going to do is you're going to go over to ScribeHow, Tango AI, you go through it with them one time, it sends it to them, and then they can train it.
Mm,
And one thing I said too, because you might have people who are like, oh well, I don't like that process. And I had the cleaning guy I was talking with, he's a really cool client, and I was telling him, and I was asking him, I was like, I said, what's your goal for this? Because he said there's something he didn't like, and I said, what's your goal for this business? I said, do you want to do everything yourself, or do you want other people to do it? He's like, well, I want other people to do it. I go, okay, if you want other people to do it, does it matter what way you like it, or does it matter that it's done properly every time? He's like, it
mm,
matters that it's done properly every time. I go, okay, cool. So I go, why don't we try using this system here and that system there, and then we can document it so that way you can hand it off to any moron. They can read the paper and know exactly what to do. I said, is
mm.
that more important, or is it more important that you have it done your way? And he's like, not my way at all. He's like, dude, I want it done their way. He's like, but what's the confusion? What's the anxiety? The anxiety is if he knows how to do it, he can communicate it to other people. If he doesn't, he can't communicate it. So if I do the
Yeah.
SOP, I've now solved that problem. And does he care if I remove him from the situation? No. Can he step in and handle it? Read the SOP.
Exactly. Yeah. As long as it's done and they
Right.
know. Yeah,
Now
I
the
see what
the, the
you.
final piece I want to say is when you're doing calling, when you're doing sales of any kind, when you're trying to get somebody to do an invoice over not an invoice, this system or that system, anything you're doing, you're gonna have a buyer's triangle, right? Buyers, I think
Mm,
they call it the buyer's pyramid or triangle. Somebody can correct me if you guys know. But what you have is at the top 3% are the people who are actively interested in exactly what you're telling them. I
mm,
say, this is what I have for this much, and they go, I love it. I've been looking for this.
yeah.
97% of people are not going to want exactly what you're telling them. Now, 7% of people are going to be actively shopping, but not necessarily actively shopping for you. So then
Yeah.
you're going to have to explain why you are the right fit, why you're a good fit. And that's where April Dunfar's book comes into play nicely, which is basically just identify who you are. They're going to have their own assumptions based on what you tell them. And that's going to make it easier, a much easier jump off point because they're already looking for the space that you're in. So it's a way easier jumping off point. The next piece of the
Yeah.
triangle are people who might buy. They're interested, but they're not actively shopping, so they might buy, right? And so for those
Mm.
people, you want to have pain points, moments of realization that lead them more into actually purchasing. Yeah, buyer's pyramid. Thank you, Omar. The final piece of the triangle are just completely uninterested in your market, completely uninterested. So what
Yeah.
you read in Ultimate Sales Machine is he says if you can take the triangle, everybody likes to
Yep. This
focus on
one
the top
here.
of the percent. Yep,
Yeah.
beautiful.
It came
It's
today,
blurred, but
actually.
perfect. What he says
Yeah.
is in that book, he covers like having an opening script where he takes the buyer's pyramid and he flips it. And he says if your opener can address the people who are completely uninterested, then you've addressed the entire pyramid, right?
Mm.
Because everybody else has a higher interest than the people who are uninterested.
Yeah.
Now, if you focus only on the top 3%, cold calling is going to be a nightmare. Ads are going to be a nightmare. Content's going to be a nightmare.
Mm.
And so what
Yeah.
you'll see if you look at my content is you'll see me rotate between different, and I'm not saying I'm the best at content by any means, but what you'll see me do as somebody who I would say I'm a self-proclaimed bad with content, and I'm still getting clients through it, is what you'll see me do is you'll see me rotate who I'm addressing. So I'll have some content where I'm like, in this video, I'm going to cover, the best sales model of 2025. That's a pretty broad topic. And then I
Yeah.
start talking about how marketers, which is a pretty broad topic, are doing things wrong. So I'm trying to focus on the bigger piece of the pyramid, right?
Mm.
I have an HR video where I say in this video I'm going to show you how to build an automated hiring pipeline. That's only 3% of people who might buy. It's a very small percent. But
Mm.
because I'm speaking directly to that 3%, what happens? It has deeper buy-in. So even though that very small, you go look at that video, I think it has like it has no more than 300 views, not very many views. That one video got me like 4 clients because it
Wow.
was so hyper specific and targeted.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the,
Yeah.
the 3 hour video that we are just talking about, that's brought me in like 7 or 8 clients within like a
Yeah.
week, right? So and it's going to perform much better across the board. But the fact of the matter is, I'm rotating who I'm speaking to. Now, if you had to pick one, the book you have will walk you through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the,
No,
and the
looking forward to reading that.
and what you're going to read in that book as well, and this is like a message for everybody, is it's all about relationship. So if you get rejected, you can't call it quits there. You're basically
Yeah.
going to learn like dating from the man's perspective. That's basically like
Mm.
the big takeaway anytime like I recommend the book to a woman. It's like you're going to learn
Yeah.
dating from the man's perspective. It's like you're going to get rejected a whole bunch and you're going to have to keep going and it's not always going to be fun. But at some point they're going to move past this like air of like annoyance and just be like, okay, let's just have a call. Let's just have a conversation and let me see.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I've been tested and rejected, it has to be in January. I've had so many.
Hmm.
But it's true, you just can't quit. You have to keep on going. Yeah. I learned a lot from those though. I kind of learned that even the ones that are not high intent, just kind of let them go because if they're going to be a headache now, I can imagine working with them. And just kind of asking more questions and getting more out of them.
Hmm.
That's something I've learned as well, like asking the right questions, trying to get to their pain points. But yeah,
Right. Yeah. And,
that
and
that
when you read that book, when you like after you read that book, I'd love to hear how you feel about follow-ups after you read that book. Because I think
yeah.
you'll switch from, oh yeah, not high intent, leave them be. I think you'll switch from that to, I'm so high intent because I believe so much in my product that I have a moral obligation to get in front of them, whether they want me to or not.
Mm, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like
Okay.
intent means nothing in my opinion. To me, it's all about like character.
Mm,
Like if you're uninterested but you're cussing me out, like that tells me what you look like when you're high stress or annoyed.
yeah, true.
But if
True.
you're high stress, annoyed, you don't want to buy from me, but you're respectful, I'll probably keep following. Even if they cuss me out, I'll probably keep following up. I had
Yeah.
a guy one time,
Yeah.
I kid you not, I had a guy one time, he was like, I'm in the middle of a boardroom meeting. I don't think he was. I'm in the middle of a meeting. And I'm
Mm,
like, why would you take my call? And I just was like, okay, well, this is what is going on, blah, blah, blah. And he's like cussing me out. And I'm just sitting there, just letting him get it all out. And he goes, you know what? I respect the fact that you're still on the phone call. He's like, let me wrap up this meeting. I'll give you a call back.
mm.
Like it
Oh,
didn't end up going anywhere, but like they will, as much as people say they don't like it, they will respect the follow-up game.
Yeah.
Now you do it 1 or 2 times, you're a telemarketer. You do it 7, 8, 9 times. Yeah, it sounds
Mm,
ridiculous, but I'm telling you, for whatever reason, and the book covers it way much better than I can in, a few
yeah.
minutes. But yeah, it covers it. I would love to see your perspective shift after that book.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna definitely start reading it from today because it came today literally. But yeah, it'll be
Mm.
interesting.
One thing I love about that book too is that it's told from both the perspective of a man leading a business and a woman leading a business. And I think that's really, really interesting
Oh
to see
wow.
the overlap and the differences. Yeah, because Amanda's his daughter, so he passes away and then she takes over.
Mm,
And I think it's a
yeah.
really interesting perspective. And for the record, she actually takes it further than the dad took it.
Oh wow. Wow.
Yeah. And she credits a lot, of course, to like growing up and learning his perspective, but also from her own innovations and most importantly, relationships. And in my opinion, women usually do very, very well with that aspect.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I do value when a client is respectful, even though if they
Mhm.
don't have time or whatever, they sound rude, but they're quite respectful. The fact that you do follow up sometimes, and they appreciate the call. It
Yeah.
could be that the service is just not for them at the moment and things like that. But when they
Mhm.
say, I've had a lot actually, and I've made a note, and they say like, hit me up again in 6 months, I'll be happy to chat then. That's still like a positive. They're still being
100%.
respectful, and the ones
Do
that
it
I do call up 6 months later, they're like, oh yeah, I remember you.
do it in
So
3 months.
yeah, yeah,
Because most of the time people
gotta,
over exaggerate times.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I
But
guess with me is the disadvantage is that I can't really create any inbound leads, which is something I'm really, really like yearning
you can
for.
if you can get on social media in groups without making content and just engage.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
look
I
at
guess so.
Ismail. Ismail hits 9 or 10K in 7 months. All he was doing was engaging in groups and posting stories. No videos, no nothing, nothing of his face ever.
Yeah,
The only thing that was his
okay.
face was his profile picture. That's all he did. No videos, nothing.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I'd probably love to kind of get in touch with him and ask him how he kind of did that,
Same exact thing I
just
have.
to get
He just
some.
followed the course. Is
Yeah,
literally just engaging in the
yeah,
group, providing value, and then he would friend them, and then he would make stories about what we cover, which is the statistics, right? He basically it was lifestyle, data point, call to action. So
yeah.
lifestyle is like, oh, I'm getting coffee today. Like, and I say always make it about the business. Like, uh, you know, gym before I go to work. Don't just be like, oh, I'm a gym bro, and then oh, I'm a fitness guy. Oh, I'm a dog guy. Like, I love hanging out with my dogs in between client calls, right?
Hmm.
So like
Hmm.
correspondent, and then the next piece is always a data point. Like, did you know 67% of people blah 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 or screenshot. Oh yeah, our clients love this. Final piece, call to action. If you want to do this, if you want us to fix this, hop in the call here. That's all he did.
Wow, okay. I need to
That
check that
engaging
out
groups
ASAP.
and then adding anybody who would respond with him, I think he would add them as a friend. That's all he
Yeah,
did.
yeah. All right, cool.
Yep.
Just one thing, Alec, before you move on to, because I'm sure that other people have other
Yeah. Well, I'll
questions.
take this question, then I gotta go to my next
Oh,
call.
yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
You're good.
Do you teach anything about like cold DMs? Because I think in the 3 hour course it was making use of your current network, but what about cold DMs?
Yeah, I cover cold DMs in the light folder. I think it's training number 12 or 13.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, yeah, that was
Say
literally
so
it.
5.9. Yeah, go to the light folder. I'll tell you right now. It is 13.
Okay, folder 13. Okay, I'll check that out.
Yep,
Great. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Alec, as usual.
of course. Appreciate you guys coming out. We'll go ahead and wrap up. We have a call tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern. And I'll see you guys there if you're able to come out. Any questions or anything, make a post in the group. See you guys.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Thanks.